Why is this stranger here? My sister-in-law sneered, stepping into my house with her husband. Her eyes were filled with contempt. Are you trying to take advantage of us? Leave the money and get out right now, she demanded, her voice sharp. I was shocked. You don't actually think you're staying here, do you? You and Helen are practically strangers, her husband added coldly. It's better if only family members live here, so leave as soon as you can, he concluded. They only cared about forcing me out. They insulted me, calling me a freeloader and an outsider. I couldn't take it anymore. Ignoring their words and looking away, I gathered my things and left the house. I'm Emma, a 35-year-old working housewife. I live a peaceful life with my husband, David, and my mother-in-law, Helen. I never really thought much about marriage, but I agreed to it as long as I could keep working after we got married. David is always so sweet to me, making sure I'm happy. I heard his dad passed away when David was in middle school, and since then, Helen has been raising him and his sister on her own. We don't have kids yet, but I know raising them must be tough, something I can't fully understand. That's why I was worried about Helen living alone, so I suggested we all move in together after we married. Helen, what do you think about living with us? If you're okay with it, I'll be out working during the day, so you'll have plenty of alone time. Plus, food is always better when there are more people around, I asked. Helen smiled. Really? To be honest, living alone has been a bit lonely lately, she said. And just like that, we decided to share a home. David had been worried about his mom being alone, but he didn't know how to bring it up. In the end, we realized neither of our places were suitable for all of us, so we bought a brand new house. We set Helen, who has weak legs, up on the first floor, and we took the second floor as our bedroom. Living with her turned out to be better than I expected. It didn't stress me out at all. In fact, she taught me how to cook and helped me clean, which wasn't something I was good at. I appreciated everything. Helen, thank you for cooking for us every day, but don't push yourself too hard, I said. We're going to be living together a long time, and if you burn out now, it could be tough later. She shook her head. What are you talking about? I'm living with you, so let me at least do this. If I don't, I'd feel like a burden, and I can't stand that, she said. Our home was always filled with friendly conversations. At first, David was worried about potential arguments between us, but seeing how well we got along, he could focus on his work without worry. Emma, thank you for getting along so well with my mom, David said one evening. I'll work even harder to make you happy. Even though I already had everything I needed, he always made promises like that. I'm already so happy because I have you and your mom, I replied. If I wanted more, I'd be afraid I'd jinx it. I hoped our peaceful life would never end, but my wish didn't last. About 6 months after we moved in together, I noticed Helen seemed off. Is something wrong, Helen? If you have any concerns, I'm here to listen, I asked kindly. Helen, who seemed down, hesitated but eventually spoke up. Bonnie and Mike have started showing up almost every day, she confessed. They said they needed money, so they took some from my purse and even helped themselves to food. They're treating this house like it's theirs. What? I gasped. It turned out that my sister-in-law and her husband were making themselves at home while David and I were at work. I remembered meeting them once before our wedding, and again at the wedding. Bonnie had looked me up and down, as if trying to judge me. So this is David's type? She remarked. I wouldn't have guessed. She's so plain, right? Just blends into the background. If I were a guy, I wouldn't even notice her. She had said it so carelessly. David had mentioned his sister was a bit wild, but I didn't expect her to be this rude. And despite being over 40, she didn't have a steady job and just did whatever she wanted. No wonder Helen was surprised. She'd always been like this. Helen even told me, when I scolded her in the past, that she never listened. If you're saying it's because of how I raised her, I agree. It's all my fault, Helen said, guilt in her voice. No, that's not true. You're not to blame, Helen, I reassured her. It's a problem when adults act selfishly and make life hard for others. David, who had overheard us, looked confused. So my sister is still causing trouble? He sighed. I thought she'd grow up after getting married, but it seems like it made things worse. From what I knew, Bonnie's husband, Mike, wasn't much of a worker either. He preferred a relaxed life, taking odd jobs only when he felt like it. That's probably why they were always short on money, complaining about being broke and hungry. David had tried to talk some sense into them before, but they never listened. In 3 days, it's payday, and they'll probably show up, Helen said, looking serious. I really want to stop them this time. David considered taking a day off to confront them, but his work schedule was too tight. I'll stay home with you instead, I suggested. It's better than leaving you to deal with them alone. If they start talking about money, I'll handle it. And so, we planned our approach. Sure enough, 3 days later, on payday Friday, they arrived right in the middle of lunch preparations. Hey, Mom, we're here, Bonnie said. We're starving. Got anything to eat? Anything will do. Just make us something, Mike added. But when Bonnie saw me, she frowned. Wait, why is Jasmine here? Aren't you supposed to be working? I took the day off to spend time with your mom, I answered. But hold on, you just said we're here. Like this is your house, isn't that a bit strange? I couldn't hold in my frustration. It's pretty rude to walk in like that and say we're home, and then ask her to make lunch for you. You've been treating our house like your personal pantry while we're gone, and it really gets to me, I said firmly. What's with the attitude? Bonnie sneered. Remember your place. You're only here because of my brother. Don't talk to me like that. If you have time to argue, you should be making our lunch, she demanded. Her behavior left me speechless, and Helen looked completely defeated. After that, Bonnie did whatever she wanted, raided our fridge and even took a bag of groceries. It became clear that Bonnie and Mike didn't understand the difference between familiarity and disrespect. At least, with me there, they didn't bring up the money. That was a small comfort. When David came home and I told him what happened, he was furious. I'm going to put an end to this. I won't let them run all over us anymore. I've had enough, he said, his face red with anger. Helen kept apologizing. I'm so sorry for all this trouble, but I reassured her. It's not your fault. We talked for a while to calm down. After that day, David took a stand, and the uninvited visits stopped. Helen slowly regained her usual cheer, just when I thought we could return to our peaceful life. About a week later, I got a call at work. Okay, I'm on my way, I said, my mind going blank. It turned out David had suddenly collapsed at work, clutching his chest in pain. His co-workers rushed him to the hospital, and by the time he arrived, he was unconscious. They had to give him chest compressions. My hand shook as I called Helen. Helen, it's horrible, David. She interrupted. I'm getting a cab right now. I'm on my way to the hospital. We both quickly took taxis and rushed to the hospital, agreeing to meet at the information desk. When we were led to the room, though, we found out that David had passed away. He was in cardiac arrest when he came in. We did everything we could, but I'm so sorry, the doctor explained. David had died of a sudden heart attack. Helen and I were in shock, unable to comprehend the sudden loss. The only comfort was that David's face looked peaceful, like he was just resting, ready to wake up and ask, "Good morning, what's for breakfast?" He had such a calm expression. While we mourned his unexpected death, Helen and I started preparing for the funeral. Many people from David's work and other friends came to offer their condolences. The warmth at the funeral truly reflected how much my husband had impacted others. However, amidst all the chaos, neither Virginia nor I had the chance to grieve properly. There were no issues in his checkup, I said, tears streaming down my face. It's such a shame. If I had paid more attention to his health, maybe this wouldn't have happened. Virginia shook her head. Jasmine, stop. You did more than anyone could have asked of you. She and I helped each other through the tough moments, but I still struggled to recover and decided to take some time off work to stay home. But just when I thought things might calm down, another unexpected event occurred. About a month after my husband's sudden death, our doorbell rang. It was Bonnie and Mike. "Who is this?" Bonnie sneered, glaring at me. "Are you planning to mooch off us now? Leave everything and get out." I was taken aback. Even Mike chimed in. "You're not thinking of staying here, are you? You and Virginia aren't even close. Only blood relatives should live here, so leave as soon as possible." Before I could even process the situation, a moving truck pulled up, and Bonnie, laughing, said, "We're moving in, just us family." While I was still grieving, they showed no compassion. Their only concern was kicking me out. They called me a leech and an outsider. I'd had enough. Arguing with people like them wasn't worth my time. As I packed up my things in my room, Bonnie mocked. "Feeling down? You can't stay here. You're younger than me, so you'll figure it out somehow." I ignored her words, avoiding eye contact, and left the house. I had no idea what happened to them afterward, but my first stop was a real estate agent. I moved quickly to put the house and property up for sale. There was no mortgage, and if I handled the paperwork, I could wash my hands of Bonnie and Mike. I'd also made some preparations just in case things went south. I'd secured potential new places and mapped out escape routes for Virginia, in case she needed to get away from her daughter. Bonnie and Mike likely planned to live off Virginia's savings, but I wouldn't let that happen. Even though we weren't related by blood, I was determined to take care of Virginia for the rest of her life. Virginia mentioned she was going shopping and stopped by my place afterward. Let's stay at a hotel until the new place is ready. It might be tight since we'll be sharing a room, but we'll manage, I suggested. I'm not worried about that, Virginia replied, but I could see she was anxious. Do you think we'll be okay? What if they start following us again? Don't worry, I won't let them push us around anymore, I reassured her. Things stayed quiet for a while, but sure enough, a month later, Bonnie called, frantic. What's going on? We've been thrown out. This was Wesley's house. Or wait, it's in Mom's name. You can't just kick us out like this, Bonnie yelled. I calmly replied, the house has been in my name since I bought it. I have no intention of living with you, and if I can't live there, there's no reason to keep it. I sold it. We've already found a buyer, and we're just waiting for you to leave, so please, vacate as soon as possible. But we have nowhere else to go. We're unemployed and in debt. It's unfair to just take the house away, Bonnie pleaded. Excuse me? I said, baffled. You kicked me out of that house too, remember? You told me to stop mooching off people, but I left quietly, didn't I? Why don't you just check into a hotel or something? We don't have any money. Where are you? Are you with Mom? Let me talk to her. We need help, or we won't survive, Bonnie begged. I could tell they were deep in debt. That's not our problem. Stop bothering Virginia. We know you've already drained her savings. Please stay out of her life from now on, I said firmly. Bonnie stammered, how can you be so heartless? She broke down in tears, apologizing desperately, but Virginia stepped in. Bonnie, if you think you can keep leaning on me, you're wrong. Do you remember using all of your dad's life insurance to pay off your debts? You promised not to do it again, but you gambled away everything. I'm done. Don't ever contact me again. What? Mom, please, don't be so harsh, Bonnie sobbed, but Virginia ended the call abruptly. Let's block her number, Jasmine. She'll just keep bothering us. She doesn't want to change, Virginia said, frustrated. Virginia, who had once been afraid and anxious, now had a new strength. Perhaps it was because she had finally said what needed to be said. Bonnie, realizing I had blocked her, tried every possible way to reach us. She called Virginia, tried reaching us through my late husband's phone, and became relentless. Since we had no intention of revealing our new address, we blocked her on WhatsApp and set our phones to reject her calls. Bonnie didn't give up. She went to our relatives, trying to get them to help her, but our family, aware of her gambling habits, turned a deaf ear. After being kicked out, Bonnie and Mike ended up without a place to stay. They had to take day jobs and spent their nights in a park until they could afford an apartment. They had once acted so high and mighty, but now it was a sad sight to see. At this point, Virginia and I have no intention of helping them. We've decided to let them sink into their debt-filled abyss. A month passed, and I finally came to terms with my husband's death. I returned to work, and though I had lost weight and people were concerned, I found comfort in coming home to my sweet mother-in-law, who greeted me with a warm smile. It wasn't a traditional living arrangement, but it felt like home. I wanted to continue living this peaceful life with her,